On the day of our Lord, November 12th, 2025, Valve announced its new lineup of Steam hardware, unveiling their new Steam controller, Steam machine, and Steam frame, more commonly known by its codename, the Valve Deckard. Recently, we've seen an influx of leaks regarding the next Half-Life game, codenamed HLX, and may even have reason to believe we'll be seeing it at this year's Game Awards. But we'll get to that in a bit. First, I want to talk about Valve's new Steam hardware and how it relates to Project HLX. Quick disclaimer. Anything said in this video should be counted as speculation, unless cited or stated as otherwise. Okay, on to the video. In September of 2021, Brad Lynch, known as Sadly It's Bradley, gave us our first glimpse into the wonderful world of Valve Deckard leaks. That was over 4 years ago. Fast forward to today, and the wait is finally over and Valve has announced their 3 new products. But that's not all. In a video by the incredible Tyler McVicker, an HLX leaks expert, who you should absolutely check out, link in the description, he shows us a graph.
Dang, that graph though. Oh my god, you guys see this graph? Holy crap, this graph.
This graph probably means nothing to you if you haven't seen his video, so let's hear Tyler McVicker's explanation for what it means for HLX.
Effectively, what I'm telling you is August of 2025 was Valve's busiest month in the last 10 years in terms of actually pushing things to builds. All right, let me back up for those that don't understand. If you're in game development and you create something that is meant to go into the build, you push it to the build. The term is you push it. You push it to, in this case, the Perforce, the version control software that creates builds based on the final or most recent version of files. So when you push something, when you make a major change, when you add a new asset, when you code something new and have to recompile DLLs and those need to be re-added into a build, you push it, it gets an ID, and each ID number that is iterated one by one shows a piece of work that has been completed in a set amount of time. Each point on this graph represents the number changes that have occurred within the prior 30 days of that point being there. And as you can see, dang, look at that graph. Look at how much work they have been getting done in the last couple of weeks.
So what we see is that just as HLX is going through its last stages of development with things like game engine tweaks and optimizations, Valve suddenly unveils their new hardware for the world to see. It should be clear to everyone paying attention that HLX will be releasing with this new hardware. So, while it's pretty clear that HLX will be the launch title for the Steam machine, what about the Steam frame? In an X post, user Gabe Follower explains that there will not be a VR game, let alone a demo developed for the Steam frame, confirming that HLX is not a VR title. This makes sense for the context of the Steam machine, as HLX will most likely be the launch title to ship with it, but this is a little confusing for what they'll do with the Steam frame. The Valve Index had Half-Life Alyx, and though it wasn't launched alongside, Valve confirmed they had a VR game in the works at the time. So is the Steam frame not getting anything? Well, it's a little complicated. And to find out what's really going on, we have to look all the way back to a Reddit post from 10 years ago. I know 10 years is a long time, but hear me out. 3D stereoscopic gaming in the Steam VR theater. Now, at first I thought this was a recent post, but apparently Steam VR Theater has been around for a long time. According to a Valve developer, this specific version was actually a Unity app, as many of the old VR demos like The Lab were, and was eventually removed in Steam VR version 2.1. This makes sense, as Valve was clearly making room to develop their new first-party Steam VR Theater for their new VR headset. But the key to all of this is the 10-year-old post describing 3D stereoscopic gameplay. I am convinced that the demo for the Steam frame is actually HLX, not as a VR game, but streamed from the Steam machine for immersive stereoscopic gameplay in the Steam VR theater. This explains why there isn't a VR title in development and also covers any need for a Steam frame demo. It appears Valve intends to present the Steam frame and machine together as a bundle with the game, giving the best, most immersive experience possible. Speaking of bundles, pricing. While nearly all info on these devices has been published, one important question remains. How much will they cost? Money is a major concern, especially when that's the one thing Valve left out, but there are multiple reasons why they can't say just yet. For one, it's another mystery that'll build anticipation among the fans, keeping them at bay for the official launch, and it could definitely be an effective way to passively increase sales. The other reason is more practical and realistic, being that they genuinely can't say how expensive each item will be, since the hardware is primarily manufactured abroad and no one knows what will happen with tariffs over the new year. So if we're to determine any possible pricing, it's only speculative at this point, even if the leaks are the real deal. One of the most circulated leaks regarding pricing of the Deckard VR headset suggests a bundle price of $1,200. The curious part of this post is the term bundle price. On one hand, the bundle could suggest the Steam frame and HLX, but it's been made pretty clear that HLX is not for VR, and I doubt the experience playing HLX standalone on the frame would be ideal. What would make a lot more sense is a hardware bundle, including the new Steam Machine, Steam Frame, and HLX all in one package. All of that for $1,200 may seem a little optimistic, and while I wouldn't say it's a definitive price, I do think this was a real number Valve was planning on, and depending on how our economy does, could still happen. I'm certainly hoping for something in that ballpark. So, is $1,200 really even possible? Absolutely. At least I think it's most definitely possible. First, let's address the main component of this theoretical bundle, the Steam Machine. The Steam Machine is effectively just a small form factor PC with all the features of a PC along with it. Unfortunately, this means Valve can't count on profits from games to make up for any loss in sales, so the price range has to be pretty rigid. LTT addresses this in their Steam Machine video, which I'll have linked in the description. Okay, so unfortunately it seems the Steam Machine won't be as affordable as many hope, since Valve can't do what they did with the Steam Deck and underprice it like crazy. In most videos on the Steam Machine, the word on pricing was that it would be similar to an entry-level computer. And in LTT's video, Valve states that it will be competitively priced with a PC.
They did give me one hint though. They said that while they expect it to be very competitively priced with a PC, that it will be priced like a PC, rather than like a console with games subsidizing the upfront hardware purchase.
Looking at most so-called entry-level computers available, the outlook is not so good. But don't lose hope just yet. If you take the specs of the Steam Machine and build a PC with near identical specs, the price actually isn't all that bad, and could even be less considering the much lower power demands and temperatures in the Steam Machine. So while it won't compete with consoles like the Nintendo Switch 2 or Xbox Series X, expect it to be priced closer to a PS5 Pro. Again, not competitive with consoles, but very much so with similarly spec'd PCs. So if we are to believe, the Steam Machine will likely come in at a base price somewhere between $700 and $800, and we keep going with this whole $1,200 bundle idea, that only leaves around $400 to $500 for the Steam frame, right? Well, let's forget about the whole bundle for a moment while we discuss the Steam frame's pricing. All that Valve had to say was that it would definitely cost less than the Valve Index, so that immediately rules out the bundle just including the frame alone. So we know it's less than $1,000. That's not a whole lot to go off of, especially considering the Index comes in at multiple prices depending on which configuration you're getting. What I haven't mentioned yet is the Steam frame's processor. The Steam frame is powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, a chip far more powerful than the Quest 3's XR Gen 2, and is quite well equipped to run most VR games at the very least, Quest quality. As developers get their hands on those dev kits, we may see a lot of Steam VR games get ported to APKs, which would mean major improvements in compatibility, performance, and most importantly, battery life. Not only that, but most VR games on Steam are also available for the Meta Quest line. This means most, if not all, devs should already have experience making ARM-compatible games. Once devs port their games over to APKs, overall compatibility gets a major boost, and the frame will easily outperform the Quest 3, possibly even the Quest 4. Regardless, right now we're concerned about prices, and the frame's processor is not cheap. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 costs an estimated $200 for Qualcomm partners, according to multiple sources, which means there is no way Valve is actually manufacturing this headset for less than $500. But let's look back at our discussion on the Steam Machine's price. The Steam Machine is effectively just a small form factor PC with all the features of a PC along with it. Unfortunately, this means Valve can't count on profits from games to make up for any loss in sales, so the price range has to be pretty rigid. That's where it all comes together. Steam gets a 30% revenue share of every game sale on their platform, so with every $50 to $70 game sale, they make between $15 and $25 each. This is why they can underprice the Steam Deck so much, since by bringing buyers into the Steam ecosystem, Valve almost always makes the losses back after a little while selling games. This is important because while it couldn't effectively apply to the Steam Machine, being a real PC and having no guarantee the customer will use it for gaming, the Steam Frame is almost entirely tailored for use with Steam, and pretty much guarantees game sales like the Steam Deck did. So at launch, we can expect the Steam Frame to be underpriced, while the Steam Machine will not be, at least for individual sale. Coming back to the leaked $1,200 bundle price, we're now better equipped to understand how it could work. Notice how in the original tweet talking about this bundle, it says very clearly, it will be sold at a loss. So at least one device will be underpriced, likely being the Frame. But if the Steam Machine is bundled with the Frame, then the game sales guarantee should apply to both, right? Exactly. So let me put it all in a table for you. Here are what I theorize to be realistic prices for both individual retail and bundle options. In the bundle, the Steam Frame will only cost $500, while for retail, it'll cost around $600, ideally. And for the Steam Machine, in the bundle it could cost around $750, while in retail it would cost closer to $800 to $900. Now that we've made it through the pricing theory swamp, let's speculate just a bit more. Game Awards. Yeah, I know you don't want the hopium, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway. Valve already announced the hardware early, 3 devices mind you, and almost definitely to give the community time to process the news so that we'd be ready for the reveal of Half-Life 3 at Game Awards 2025. They could leverage the advantages of running on their hardware, especially the $1,200 bundle. It just makes sense. And then there's these tweets. They know what they're doing, and I don't think there is a single more anticipated game right now. So that's it. The Steam Frame and Steam Machine in a bundle with Half-Life 3 announced at Game Awards 2025. I have no idea what Valve will call it, but I am certain this is something they plan on doing, and if I turn out to be wrong, Valve honestly missed a great opportunity. You've made it to the end of the video. This is actually my first ever long-form video, and I don't know how often I can make videos like this being in college and all, so if you'd like to see more or have any feedback, feel free to let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.